not adjust your computer screen. It's your mind we're changing. Stories set to a theme. Think outside. Universe Box.
From the heavens to your ears, this is Universe Box, and it's a bird, it's a plane, it's a podcast. I'm Bill Meeks.
And I'm scared.
Don't be scared.
But I'm really in my DeSimone, but I'm surrounded. Guys, look, I'm scared.
Don't tell our audio listeners yet.
I'm scared.
But before we get started, though, we just wanted to go ahead and let you guys know what we have coming up the next few weeks. Because we're wrapping up with this next set of episodes here.
We are with this set of episodes, yep.
But let's see here. But we wanted to go ahead and let you know what we're doing. So if you want to go ahead and send in stories for us, you could. Right here at the top. Next week, April 23rd, is the 90s.
We love the 90s. Strikes back.
April 30th is Ghost. There's not going to be a show the week of the... whatever that is, like the first week of May, because I'm going to be in RegalCon in Anaheim, California. And then May 14th is Everything Old is New Again.
Basically, reboots.
And May 21st is Harry Potter.
One of the reasons I wanted to, Bill, to go over these at the top of the show is because for Harry Potter, we are going to be reading the first book and watching the first movie and comparing. Like, we're kind of doing a Wonder Box with the book. Yeah. And I know some people are slow readers.
So if you want to get started on that.
It's a month or so.
And definitely you can go ahead and feel free to send in feedback on any of those topics we just mentioned. universeboxshow@gmail.com.
Yes. But that was why I wanted to do that. But yeah.
So I guess we should go ahead and get started with this week's episode. So Anne-Marie, why don't you tell us what's in the box?
What's in the box?
What could possibly be in the box? I have no idea based on our set decorations.
What's in the box? Oh, look, it's Superman.
Yes.
It's a really bad shield. I have no artistic talent.
Which you're showing the camera because we stream this live every Thursday night at 8:30 p.m. EST at live.universebox.com. But yes, this week we're talking about Superman. We'll climb up on our soapbox to decide if the Man of Steel is a good character. Then we'll look in the memory box to hear stories from Dean Cain and the real-world inspiration for Lois Lane. And in the Wonder Box, we're discussing Smallville and Lois and Clark. Finally, we'll pull out some questions you guys submitted through the idea box, and we also have a pretty big mailbox segment this week, too.
Oh, yeah. Everybody had a little something to say about Superman this
Everybody
week.
was also kung fu fighting, which was weird. We don't encourage that at all.
Kung fu fighting.
Okay, so I guess we should go ahead and get started.
Yes.
So Superman gets... You know, I'm a big Superman fan. I'm going to try and hold that back until the end of the episode. But out there, I noticed Superman gets a ton of hate. Now, does Superman suck, or is he an iconic addition to American culture? We're going to hash it out in the soapbox. And the question that we'll be debating in this week's soapbox with Anne-Marie's Superman cape
I'm channeling it for the soapbox.
Is Superman a good character? And that's just very broad, generally, like, is he a good character or is he a bad character? Anne-Marie will be arguing on the side of Superman being a good character.
Superman, ow! Sorry.
And I will be arguing, against my own opinion, mind, I will be arguing that Superman is a bad character. So, Anne-Marie, hug your pillow for comfort. And why don't we go ahead and get started? Point yours, Anne-Marie. Go ahead and get started.
Superman is an honest to goodness person well, alien. He fights to defend everybody, no matter who they are. He doesn't care. He just wants everybody good and happy.
Yeah, I think you meant honest to goodness good person. Yeah.
I can't read my own stuff.
No, but he
the pillow.
He is a very moral person. That's for sure.
He's very moral. He's very good things. Good things.
Okay, although some people would probably classify that as a criticism, because some people, say that he's a big Boy Scout a little too.
No, I've never heard that one before.
Some might say. Okay, so my first point is to why Superman is a bad character, why he sucks. He's super intelligent, yet he wastes his time fighting bad guys. Wouldn't his powers be better put to use in the lab that he's built in the Fortress of Solitude? Several Death of Superman stories over the years have had him curing cancer, disease. He even finds a cure for evil, if you can believe it. But it only ever occurs to him to go and do all these experiments and make all these big movements forward scientifically when he's about to die. It's irresponsible of him not to devote his time to science, considering, he has the finest mind in the world. That's probably one of the reasons why Lex Luthor hates him so much, because he's just not living up to his scientific potential.
Point to me. He just wants to live a normal life and be a reporter and, have his love, and he just wants to be normal. He didn't ask to be special or extra smart or anything of that. We shouldn't fault him for not wanting to do all of that.
Okay,
he doesn't necessarily want to be known for being special or super.
So you're basically saying that he doesn't do the things he does for glory or anything like that. He does it because no one else can, or he has to, or whatever.
Yeah, that works. Yeah. He just wants to be normal. Like, he wants to blend in. He doesn't want to stand out. By doing all that stuff, it makes him stand out even more.
Fair enough. Now, on the flip side, keeping his secret identity and everything from Lois, once they're in a relationship, completely diminishes the character. It completely kind of tears down the fact that he's this ultimate moral good guy, right? Now, a good person doesn't lie to their significant other 75% of the time. The fact that he usually doesn't tell her until she falls in love with Clark specifically makes him seem like a manipulative, controlling narcissist. Plus, he makes her beef bourguignon with ketchup. It's really gross.
Really?
Yeah. It's an inside joke.
Oh.
It's a Superman inside joke.
Oh, interesting. Okay. I'm sorry, this is rough.
That's cool.
Okay. My next point, I'm not a good flow with what he's got here. The Fortress of Solitude is pretty stinking cool. He's got all that unearthly technology, and he has that escape. And what are you doing over there?
Oh, I'm just pulling up a picture of the Fortress of Solitude.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah, like, it's super cool. I want a Fortress of Solitude. That's hard to even look at.
Yeah, here's the Fortress of Solitude. If you're watching the video stream here, let's see. We have the Jor-El and Lara statue, the Sunstone Simulator, the trophy room and museum with giant dinosaur statues, wax figures of his friends. And he even has a zoo there where he keeps all sorts of animals that he's collected over the years.
How cool is that? That's a cool part of him.
Definitely. And it's kind of like his man cave too, where he can go
I want a man cave.
He can go and retreat from the
crazy people. That's the part that keeps him normal, is he hides.
Yeah, he has to go and get away.
It's his vacation. Yeah, I knew you were gonna
gotta get away. Okay, so another thing that really makes Superman kind of suck is that he's drifted away from the initial original concept that Jerry and Joe did way back in 38, right? That's probably wrong, and I'm probably going to make a fool of myself. Now, in the original Action Comics #1, he was more of a champion of the oppressed, protecting the weak and innocent from the rich and powerful, kind of like a Zorro or something like that. These days, most haters anyway think he represents the man, or that he's a tool of the establishment, and they aren't necessarily wrong. As far as modern interpretations are concerned, usually he'll push back against say the military just a little bit, and then he's their best friend and everything. And you even see this in Man of Steel, where even the filmmakers had a really good working relationship with the military. But then again, Superman is propaganda is another concept that goes back to his first decade. There were a lot of comic books back then where, he was fighting Hitler or, helping out in World War II, or Clark Kent couldn't enter into World War II because he looked through the wall with this X-ray vision instead of reading the eye chart, so he failed his physical, stuff like that. But, all that being said, Grant Morrison's run on Action Comics a few years ago, back when they did the New 52 reboot, probably about as close as you're going to get to the original concept. For sure. Tonda Gasa in the chat room mentions Red Sun Superman. That's a good Superman. I like that one.
Okay. Next point of why Superman is a good character. He's very inspiring and influential for a lot of people. Mm-hmm. He's influenced a ridiculous amount of fictional characters. But he's also inspired people in their day-to-day lives, like, well, you. But also, like, some celebrities, which sort of brings more notoriety to his goodness. Because people see it more.
Oh yeah.
Because when something's associated with your favorite celebrity, I don't know, Shaq.
Yeah,
because I know Shaq is a massive fan.
Bon Jovi also.
I wouldn't.
Actually,
I just remember seeing cribs with Shaq, and there was Superman stuff everywhere.
Trivia. I don't know if you know this or
probably not.
But back during the death of Superman in the 90s, there were 4 Supermen who came in to take his place for a while. One of them was named Steel, and Shaq played that character in a movie back in the 90s.
I think I knew that.
Really bad movie.
Well,
really bad
Shaq.
Movie.
But yeah. So he's just very inspiring, and pretty much, tries to get people take his stories and want to be that good person.
Oh yeah. And I mean, I'm arguing against Superman tonight and everything, but I my moral code is pretty much like 90% Superman stuff. So
yes, it is.
Okay, but another reason why Superman should just be put out to pasture, DC Comics should just sell him off to the highest bidder, some, I don't know, Chinese company, and be done with it, is that he's not a very ethical reporter. Superman isn't. The fact that he files exclusive interviews with himself is bad enough. Even when Superman isn't involved at all in the story, Clark has still been known to assault people, break down locked doors, rifle through private and even sometimes top secret files, and trick the elderly even. I can think of a specific Lois and Clark episode where he tricks an old lady just to get a scoop. The simple fact that he reports on Superman while being Superman would be grounds for dismissal at any respectable publication, which I don't think many exist anymore. But if they did, if Clark Kent didn't have to be a BuzzFeed blogger these days, then he would probably be fired.
BuzzFeed.
Oh, Bobby says in the chat room, one of my favorite stories was an Elseworlds story where Kal-El landed in the land of King Arthur. I have one.
So aren't you regretting giving me this pile of comics now?
This one's pretty cool, too. This Elseworlds annual here, basically what happens is Superman's rocket lands right before the Revolutionary War, and he helps the British win it. And so it's like, and then it flashes forward 200 years, and you get to see how America would have happened if the British had won the Revolutionary War. Yeah, interesting comic, though. But,
okay.
Yeah, Clark Kent's an awful reporter.
Awful. Okay, so my last point is that he believes that people are inherently good. Sure, some people take some turns for the worse, but deep down, everybody has a good in it, and Superman wants to defend them and help people to be their best selves.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I don't agree, actually.
No, hate it.
Because Superman sucks, and I'm arguing why he sucks. The last reason I think he sucks, and I try to do very much because, I'm a huge Superman fan, so I have people come to me all the time being like, here's why Superman sucks, but it's always like the same 3 or 4 things. Mm-hmm. And so I tried with these to name things that were pretty accurate, made him look bad, and I'd never heard before. Okay, so the last one is that his guest appearances in other, more popular or Bat-themed comic books are pretty much universally awful. Many comic book writers dislike the character for whatever reason. Usually it comes down to, him being overpowered, him being the big blue Boy Scout or something like that. So when they're forced to use him in a crossover event in their own book, they either, they half-ass it, They write him at bland and vanilla, as vanilla as you could possibly imagine. They make him a villain, which has become very popular over the past couple of years. Or they transform him into a caricature of how they see the character, that big establishment guy. They'll just write him like that when that's really not the character. So the version of Superman that exists outside of his own books and his own movies and his own TV shows is pretty much a horrible, unoriginal character. And that's another reason why Superman sucks, because the version that most non-fans know is a bad character.
What's
up?
Stressy.
Anything from the chat room here?
Not that I'm really. No, they're having some Wonder Twin powers.
Yeah, they're discussing the different Superman cartoons like Super Friends and Justice League and all sorts of stuff like that. Yeah, but I think that was a pretty good fight. Pretty good fight.
Yep.
I don't know which side.
Please don't make me have to do stuff like that again.
I don't know. No, it's a
Let
good
me
exercise.
fight things that I know.
It's a good exercise to fight against your viewpoint.
I was not in debate at all.
Neither
ever.
was I, except I was.
Except that you were.
But no, that's fine. If you had to choose, though, which side won in that debate? Which side do you think won?
Honestly, your points are more motivating than mine, but I do know he's a good person, so he's a good character.
He is a good character. I do like Superman. Don't get me wrong. Get me wrong.
In case you're confused at all by anything that's...
Superman stuff everywhere. And not a drop to drink.
Oh my God, look at that picture.
Okay, well, next up, we're going to hear some behind-the-scenes stories from Lois and Clark's Dean Cain, as well as some anecdotes from the original Lois Lane and wife of Jerry, Joanne Siegel. So we'll be back in a few, and if you're here watching in the chat room, we're going to be in there hanging out with you guys, too, and everything, so don't worry about that. We'll see you in just a few.
Hey, let's take a minute and meet Clark Kent, the star of Superman.
Chief, believe me, you're in for a treat just as soon as Jimmy gets back here.
Great Caesar's ghost. What's holding him up? You know I can't work without a good breakfast.
Chief, Jimmy's bringing a box of Kellogg's Sugar Smacks.
All the more reason for hurrying. Confound it, that boy knows I like those new Sugar Smacks.
And he knows I do, too. And that's a cinch.
Well, here I am. Young man, if you spill those new Sugar Smacks, you're fired.
Golly, Chief, I hadn't opened up the box yet. But I'm going to now.
Well, I guess we all agree on Sugar Smacks.
Right.
Folks, don't wait. Get Kellogg's new Sugar Smacks. They're better than ever. Puffs of wheat, sugar toasted, and candy sweet.
First, she was convicted.
Guilty of murder in the first degree.
Now,
I'm taking you out of here.
Lois Lane is Metropolis's most wanted.
Mad Dog Lane.
Just to meet us, you'd never think of us as Bonnie and Clyde.
The Lane woman is still on the loose.
They've got to get to the truth.
They're setting up roadblocks.
Before someone gets to them first.
You just let me know when it is a good time to panic.
Open up, it's the police.
Don't miss an all-new Lois and Clark.
Hi, do you know what this is? It's the letter S. And it stands not only for Superman, but for a lot of other words as well. Speed, for instance. And sky. And spaceship. S also stands for sea. And sailboat. And storm. And sinking. And save. And sand. Yes, sir, S is a very important letter. So the next time you think of Superman, think of the letter S.
Come on, kids. If you want to grow up fast, take one of these. One puff and they'll soon be in my grasp.
Not so fast, nicotine. If you want to go up fast, take one of these. With my X-ray vision, I can see the harm cigarettes do inside people's bodies. That's why I never say yes to a cigarette.
Luthor has Superman trapped. He's using kryptonite to destroy his powers.
Now you'll tell me why Superman peanut butter tastes so great. Never. So fresh roasted, so creamy, so yummy, that its secret will be mine, all mine. I spoiled again. Just wait, Superman. I'll find out.
Superman peanut butter. Its strength is its great taste.
Today we gather to honor two teenagers who created a universe on a piece of paper. Superman may be from Krypton, but he was born right here, in this house, in Cleveland's Glenville neighborhood, from the amazing minds of Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster. You know, a little over 20 years ago, Jerry Siegel remembered those early days in a letter to Mayor George Voinovich. He wrote, "Cleveland, whose streets we walked, and where we dreamed our wildly ambitious dreams back in the 1930s, during the Depression. We would walk all the way downtown because we couldn't afford streetcar fares. We looked up at Cleveland's Terminal Tower and visualized a costumed figure who had not yet seen print, whizzing through the sky around it on a secretly tremendous important mission, no doubt. Well, today, that mission would have brought him to Kimberly and Amore Avenues. There are 5 literary characters known worldwide. They include Sherlock Holmes, Robin Hood, Mickey Mouse, Tarzan, and of course Superman. The influence of these two men stretched around the globe. Like the kid near Stockholm, Sweden, who saw World War II happening in his own backyard. But that kid would read about Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster in Jules Verne magazine. He saw their vision for a future filled with hope and justice and accomplishment and some kind of peace. And that young boy vowed, someday I will go to Cleveland, Ohio. He grew up to be a renowned science fiction writer and journalist. And he eventually made it to stand here on this very porch to pay tribute to these truly remarkable individuals. What about a young boy closer to home, on Cleveland's southeast side, who would look out of his first grade window and imagined a man flying through the clouds and wondered about other characters captured in the printed word, not only in comic books, but the classics as well. His teacher may have taught him to read, but Siegel and Shuster gave him a reason to want to read and write and express himself. And that kid would grow up owing a lasting debt to Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster. A young girl on the city's west side would read Superman behind closed doors because it was seen as a boy's comic book. Well, she was inspired by the Man of Steel and Lois Lane to pick up a camera and capture images that would bring her and Cleveland international acclaim. Now, this world-renowned photographer has worked with the biggest names in entertainment to this very day. Hanging prominently in her home is a framed drawing of Superman, her constant reminder of the influence Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster had on her life. As I mentioned, they used to be called funny books. But Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster elevated this art to a new and exciting form of literature. Again, it's called the new mythology. Maybe a kid in the 50s or 60s got a dime for his weekly allowance. Maybe he had a paper route. That kid would go to a drugstore or a newsstand and look at those big revolving, creaking stands of colorful magazines. And that dime bought that kid a ticket to another world full of adventure and space travel and maybe a trip through time. And it showed that a woman like Lois Lane could be assertive and successful in what was then called a man's world, even if she couldn't see the truth that what was hidden behind that flimsy pair of glasses. You know, in reality, she knew. She just didn't want to ruin the story. Otherwise, it would have been a waste of a dime for that kid. Let's face it. They embraced those characters. We all embraced those characters, really. But in reality, we didn't want to be Superman. More importantly, they saw the potential and the drive and the great dignity and the inspiration that was offered by two teenagers who never gave up and forever changed the face of American culture. In reality, they wanted to be Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster. That's another major reason that we're here today.
Next, I'd like to thank our dignitary, Joanne Siegel, Jerry Siegel's wife. She, with her daughter Laura, have carried the torch to continue to bring respect and acknowledgement and attention to the creative work of Jerry and Joe.
Hi, I have been actually met Mrs. Siegel yet. I went last night, we had a reception, and I saw her across the room, and I was kind of shy, you know, I didn't want to go up and talk to her. I even wore a nice suit, which I normally don't do, and I got to thinking, that sounds kind of familiar, right? To me, Superman begins with Lois Lane. you can't have Superman without Lois Lane. Because why else do you put on red and blue and a cape and jump around if you're not trying to impress a pretty girl? So we'd like to present from the Siegel and Schuster Society a copy of the original Situation Wanted ad that Joanne put out in the paper just on a whim to be a model, and Joe and Jerry answered it, and the rest is history. Thank you.
Oh, okay, very good.
They want to give me a second brick.
You can put that on eBay.
They think I can sell it, maybe. If Mrs. Siegel would put her head out the door right now, she'd say, "Oy vey, Jerome, what did you do?" And I'd say, "I didn't do anything, Ma." Well, this is such a great honor for Laura and myself, and to see everybody turn out, even in the rain. Because it's raining, I'm going to make this short, so Laura can get her turn. But what I want to say is this is a very special day, and I want to thank everybody who had a part in making this happen. I won't name names because then my speech will get long. But this is such a special house. As you all know, something very special happened here, which is an influence, surprisingly, all over the world, because Superman is known everywhere. And when we went to Sweden, Jerry and I, as guests of Sweden, for their 400th year anniversary, and the people, the way they turned out, it was amazing. And they had known that they were going to have a convention there, so people came from all over Europe for that convention. And so we met people from China and Germany and Australia and New Zealand, all over. It was amazing. And so I just want to say, God bless this house, and God bless everyone who comes here, because when you come here, just feel the vibes that are in this house, because the Grays, the wonderful people who own this house, have also been Superman fans, and they have kept that vibe going all these years. And you would come in, sign the guest book, and just feel the house as you go through. Jerry had tremendous energy. He would not walk through a house, he would swoosh through a house. And sometimes it would tire me out. I'd say, "Don't rush around so much, you're making me tired." And he couldn't understand that anyway. The rain is picking up, so I'm going to let Laura get in here. And God bless you all for coming. And I'm sorry if you get wet. But please remember this day with a great deal of pleasure and inspiration, because it is a house that inspires people for good and to help others. Thank you all for coming. And now here's Laura.
And I just wanted to share with you that one of my father's all-time favorite songs was The Impossible Dream from Man of La Mancha. And although it was written about Miguel the Don Quixote character, if you think about it, and I won't go through the lyrics, I'll spare you that right now, but if you think about it, it had great significance both for my father as a person, for the impossible dream that it was for him to create this character Superman. In many ways it had to do with the character Superman himself, and that it also had to do with the effort that the people went into the impossible dream of making this house as beautiful as it is today. So once again, thank you so much. We love you all, and we appreciate you very deeply. Thank you.
Sunday.
Great shades of Elvis. An army of invisible criminals.
When strange things happen in Metropolis.
There's no such thing as an invisible man.
Not seeing is believing.
Who's there? I've got a weapon. Superman, where are you?
Lois and Clark, Sunday on ABC.
I was wondering, if you were going to write another Superman story, what would you want to do? Well, I actually wrote 2 episodes while I was there. One of them was Season's Greetings, another was called Virtually Destroyed. It was fun. When you're on a show and you're doing a series like that, I've often said, we work 18 hours a day minimum. I'd leave my house, I'd be home 18 hours later. Sometimes there was one day where we shot 22 hours. I say poor preparation, but other people say go to work. When you're there, you have that downtime in between scenes, in between things. I never wanted to have real idle time. You didn't have enough time to go to the gym or do something completely, so I would sit there and I would write stories. I loved doing that. It was same time I got cast to play Clark in Lois and Clark. I had a writing deal at Hollywood Pictures, and I couldn't do both because the time commitment was too much for the acting. If I were, honestly, goodness, if I were to sit down and write another Superman story, I've seen the stories replayed on Spider-Man, on Batman, a lot of the things that we played in Lois and Clark. We had 86 hours or something of that nature to explore the relationship between the two. And I've seen the same thing, I've seen the Spider-Man movies go through a lot of the same beats that we did, and even Superman Returns, things like that. By the way, Superman Returns, how can Superman let another man raise his kid? I'm sorry. That's a hard one to do. That one really bothered me. But I digress. So I don't know where I would take it. I would sit down with the DC guys and I would sit down and talk about it, and I'd listen to what some people had to say. But ultimately, I would take all that in and then I would flush it because a story has to stand on its own. I don't know how dark Superman can get. He is the most moral of all characters. You have the most powerful man in the world raised on small-town American values, and it's a pretty strong story, and I'd like him to be able to keep those values. It looked like Captain America did a good job in Avengers, and I'd like to see it, handled somewhat in the same way. And if I had a real good story for the next film, I would copyright it to the nth degree before I ever showed it to anybody. That is for sure. But at this point in time, I don't have anything. George Reeves, I think, did a great job. I really enjoyed his Clark Kent. His Superman, what could you do back in the 50s? It was a little different. He was laying on a box and he jumped off of the little trampolines, I suppose. Christopher Reeve was my Superman. He was the Superman I had growing up, and he is the Superman that I modeled my character after when I played Superman. Clark Kent was much more the George Reeve style, so I sort of stole a little bit from each of them, footnoting where applicable, because I wouldn't want to take their thunder, but those guys did great jobs. And when we had started with Lois and Clark, Deborah Joy Levine, she came up with a different take, and it was her take that spoke to me, and it was very clear to me that I felt very comfortable with what she had created on the page. And she continued that, and the show continued in that vein. I was very well aware that I was stepping into the shoes of, possibly the greatest American icon ever. Saying that and understanding what that means are two different things. So when I first started, I said, oh yeah, sure, of course. I'm going to play this role, and it's great. And someone said, your life will never be the same after this. And I said, I don't know what that means, really. And, probably for the first year, it was a really tough transition because you do so many photo shoots and so many things and so brand new to you. I would be asleep in my bed thinking that, I was having pictures taken of me. I mean, where's the psychologist on that one? It just felt like it's hard to have that lack of privacy and the loss of anonymity. I can't imagine how I would have handled that had I been even younger. So it's tough for some of these kids who get a degree of fame. Then as you get older, you realize it's all, make-believe anyway. And it's very fleeting, and you watch the next guys come in and do that, so it puts it all in perspective. But I didn't feel daunted by the task because of the way that Deborah Joy had created the character. I felt really comfortable. In fact, we'd gone through the audition process, and I was working on it, and I was doing well. And one night they wrote a new scene and had us come back the next day to do that scene. When they wrote that scene, I knew the job was mine. And the scene they wrote was where Lois had come to Clark's apartment and was a little intoxicated. and wanted to get it on. And Clark, being the most moral guy in the world, wouldn't do such a thing. And so that was the scene, and I knew how to play that. I don't know how. But I felt very comfortable, and that's when I knew that I was going to, in my head, get the role, or I felt like I was the guy to get it. The Superman curse, there is no Superman curse. I mean, that's completely fabricated. Kurt Allen lived to very ripe old age and did fantastically, and if I can live as long as him, I'll be lucky. George Reeves, that was his situation was pretty tough. There was a lot that was going on then, and he may have had his own demons, and I don't really know if there is a final decision on what happened to him. I never saw the Affleck movie, but I'd like to, that portrayed that, but I really don't know the situation there. Christopher Reeve, as tragic as things were, it could very well be argued that he's extremely triumphant, and what he did and what he overcame was amazing. And certainly in my life, I feel pretty non-cursed at this point in time. Brandon Routh, great friend of mine, great guy, seems to be doing just fine, and now we got Henry Cavill. So the reality is most of us haven't had any real problems, so I think that Superman curse is a myth. Well, I never wear the Superman suit around to impress my son, but there's been a lady or two, no, I'm kidding. You know, the truth of the matter is, we were picked up for a 5th season, so at the end of the 4th season, we were getting ready to come back for a 5th. And then Terry she got pregnant, and it was going to be very unhealthy for her and her unborn child to work. Warner Brothers played around with the idea for a little bit, and then said, you know what, we're done. And that was the end. If I had known that we weren't coming back, I would have pilfered so many of those suits and so many things. I would have started, getting my bags full of stuff and then I wouldn't say. So unfortunately, I didn't take a suit home. Walking around in this suit on Halloween would be kind of a scary thing to be like, doesn't that guy know he's not the character anymore? So I can let it go with grace.
I just want to know what you admire the most about the character of Superman. Obviously, we have our own things that we love about Superman, what he means to the world, what he represents. What does he mean to you? What do you hope he will leave for generations to come? I mean, he's modern myth and legend for the world.
Well, I think we touched on this earlier a little bit, and I think the thing about Superman is, here he is, this, we're America, we're a nation of immigrants. He's an immigrant, if you will. I met someone from the INS yesterday, and they asked me to sign a picture, and I wrote, "Don't deport me." It's a Superman photo. We are a nation built on immigrants, and it makes us so diverse and so strong. And here you get a guy coming in from another planet who is raised in small-town America on small-town values, and what he says, truth, justice, and the American way. I think that's what he represents. I think that's about as wholesome as it gets, and that to me is the essence of Superman and the essence of America, and I think it's the greatest thing that we have. That's a very good point, which is a very rarely brought up point. I'm a quarter Japanese. I was actually born, Tanaka was my given name. And the funny thing was, when I was first cast, it was it was amazing because the internet was in its infancy. That's how old I am. And we were starting to hear comments and things of that nature, and there was some literary genius out there who wrote, Dean Cain is Superman. We wanted Superman, not Sushi Man. My brother laughed so hard at that. He thought that was the funniest thing in history, and I thought it was hysterical because I was raised here in America. I never saw myself looking like an outsider. In fact, one day, one of my friends, when I was a young kid, 10 years old maybe, had asked, he said, "Hey, Frank's sister wondered if the Chinese kids had moved out." And I was like, "Well, what Chinese kids?" And he's like, "You." I was like, "I'm not Chinese, I'm Japanese." He's like, "There's no difference." There is. But it wasn't even in my consciousness that I looked Asian. I never even thought about that. It was interesting. I've always been sort of perceived as an all-American type person. I played football. I was a captain of the football team. I did very well in school. I never thought of myself as anything other than completely American, which is, I think, is a great connection to Superman. Here is a Kryptonian who is nothing but an American, fighting for, again, truth, justice, and the American way. The fact that could be in any way controversial is shocking to me, because I think the American way, is, as I look at the rest of the world, is the best way and represents the greatest beacon of light out there. As far as playing iconic characters, you don't think about it in the moment. You're doing your best, and people are around you, and there are a lot of cooks in the kitchen, so to speak. But at the end of the day, you do the best you can. I didn't know if I was going to be well received or not well received. And there's always people who aren't going to like you. As an actor, you need to have a thick skin. If you take it too personally, it will destroy you, and it's destroyed a lot of people in the past. I'm an athlete first, and so I sort of approach my work as an athlete and say, okay, I'm going to do the best job I can, and if people like it, great, and I appreciate that. But if they don't like it, I will have to say sorry. That I've done the best I can, and it's something my father told me early on. He said, if you read your reviews and you start believing them, you're going to get lost. And if you read the good reviews, you need to read the bad reviews too, and you can give them both. It's going to destroy you. As I always do with my father's advice, I took part of it and put the other part away. So as it works now, if I get a review and it's a good review, I'll read that. Bad review? Nah.
Gosh, Clark, we've got to get back to the office and call London before the meeting's over. Taxi!
With the AT&T card, your people have the power to handle business better.
Taxi!
From anywhere to anywhere.
Come on, Clark.
It's okay, Lo. Everything's taken care of.
You always disappear in an emergency.
Order the AT&T card. It gives your people enormous abilities.
And we're back. Just a couple of things I wanted to point out. One, that a Superman House event that we pulled those clips from, that was such a fun event. It was basically the Screaming Tiki Con in Cleveland had me up, and I got to meet Brad Meltzer, Joanne Siegel, who you saw there. So a lot of the Siegel and Shuster families were all there. There was this giant Superman cake that was probably 8 feet tall, and we just sat around eating cake, and they were telling stories. It was a really good time. Really good time. Oh, and yeah, also I wanted to mention that last commercial we played there before we came back. In preparation for this episode, I was surprised with how much commercialized stuff there was out there with Superman. If he wasn't shilling something, then he was featured on it, and sometimes it was both. So, a lot of those people who were big haters about Man of Steel and all the product placement and everything, long storied history of whoring himself out, I guess.
Happens.
From Superman.
Sometimes you just got to whore yourself out.
Okay, well, we're going to get into the Wonder Box here in a minute or two, but first we wanted to just briefly mention our Patreon.
Anne-Marie, we do a Patreon. Yes, right now we're producing 3 weekly episodes, and over the past couple months we've been expanding our quality and quantity of our content, and we're looking to branch out to do more nationwide fan events and bring more exclusive content, new podcasts, new specials, what have you. Patreon is the easiest way for us to help sponsor this. And it's easy. You can do a monthly donation anywhere from 10 cents to $10 at patreon.com/universebox. Each level is going to give you different rewards like free books, exclusive content. We can sing you a song. I think we owe a couple people songs, by the way.
Yeah, we still need to record this.
Yeah, we'll write you a letter. Who knows? You might get our deep, darkest secrets. You might get a poem. Who knows? It could just be a grocery list. Your donations have also helped us to already get rid of ads outside of our own internal ads, and throw a party once a month for all of our patrons online. Our next milestone is to be producing bi-weekly movie commentaries. So it's going to be like sitting down with us, grab your popcorn, and watching a movie and snarking our way through it. To support us, go to patreon.com/universebox to make your monthly pledge. And your donation goes towards helping us to bring you even more great content. Thank you, patrons.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Big thanks to our 21 patrons who have us up to $139.50 so far.
Woohoo!
So, excellent. Okay.
I love it.
Hey, you guys.
Thank
We
you,
love
guys.
you.
We love you. You're
We love
awesome.
you. Okay, now it's time to find out if we'll rediscover the wonder we felt from our favorite movies and TV shows in
The
Wonder
Wonder
Box. Now, which wrong
one.
thing. Hold on.
Try
There we
again.
go.
That
Okay,
one
which
first.
TV Superman is the real deal of steel? Join us as we travel back to Smallville. Well, several versions of Smallville. We're watching Lois and Clark and the Smallville pilot this week on the Wonder Box. Now, Anne-Marie, I guess we'll go ahead and start with Lois and Clark. Would you like to read our rhyming episode summary?
Sure, why not?
Cool.
A man from the past shows up at the planet. If time is a track, then H.G. Wells ran it. He needs some assistance from young Lane and Kent to track down Tempest, a future malcontent. Hop on the time machine, it's time to embark to Smallville's past in Lois and Clark.
Lois and Clark.
Lois and Clark.
This is actually Tempest Fugitive is the episode we'll be discussing today. It's actually one of my favorite episodes, or actually my favorite episode for sure of Lois and Clark.
Favorite.
But before we get started in our main discussion, Rebecca Johnson, who is an occasional contributor here on the Universe Box, sent in a video. It'll kind of give you a good idea of what the episode was about if you haven't seen it too. So go ahead and take it away, Rebecca.
Lois, did you know that in the future you're revered at the same level as Superman? Why, there are books about you, statues, and interactive games. You're even a breakfast cereal. But as much as everybody loves you, there is one question that keeps coming up. How dumb was she? That's a question Tempest asks on Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman, and a question Rebecca Johnson asked in real life. When I was in high school, I very vividly remember sitting in French class and talking in English about how much of an idiot I thought Lois Lane was for not being able to see through Clark Kent's glasses. I wore glasses back then and was pretty sure if I took them off, people would still know it was me. Rebecca glasses on, Rebecca glasses off. 10 years later, I started reading Superman comics and watching all of Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman, and began to see Lois Lane in a brand new light. Surprisingly, she became one of my favorite characters. Lois was a go-getter, a truth seeker, and a reminder of all the muckrakers like Ida Tarbell and Nellie Bly that I had studied in college. Female journalists who challenged big businesses and investigated wrongdoings, not unlike Lois Lane, fighting for the integrity of the Daily Planet and writing exposés on Lex Luthor. Terry Hatcher's Lois is the embodiment of all the awesome things about the character. Despite being galactically stupid about Clark in the episode Tempest Fugitive, Lois goes on a great rant about lying, does what she can to help, and shows compassion for the people she cares about. No wonder the people of the future hold her in such high esteem. Terry's Lois Lane is the standard by which I judge all other incarnations of the character. So Universe Box, I hope you enjoy her just as much as I do in the episode Tempest Fugitive.
And thank you very much, Rebecca.
Dude, she's
video.
awesome.
Definitely. We need to figure out some way to get
Actually have her on.
Yeah, that would be good for starters, for sure. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started talking about Tempest Fugitive here. Now, basic premise, H.G. Wells brings a guy named Tempest back from the future. He steals a time machine and tries to abduct baby Superman from the rocket ship that lands in Smallville. And Lois and Clark have to steal that baby back.
Steal the baby.
Now, having the hero involved in his own origin like this is a very common superhero trope. The Flash comes to mind, for example. He was the lightning that hit himself to turn him into the Flash. Usually, it's a fun way to tell the origin story without actually just being a boring retelling of the origin story. It's kind of like, they'll do this kind of story like issue 25 or so when they want to touch back on the origin without doing a whole nother origin issue or something like that to bring in new readers. Now, I know of several Silver Age Superman stories that did this too. In fact, Elliot S. Maggins' Miracle Monday, travel agents from the future actually booked trips back to Smallville in the past to the day that Superman's rocket landed. Like, you can walk into a travel agent in like 2227 or something and be like, hey, I want to go back to the day Superman's rocket landed. And so, it's very similar to the kind of a utopia that we hear about from Tempest's time period in this episode. Now, I thought it was one thing about the whole Tempest trying to kill baby Superman and everything. What he does is he stacks little kryptonite rocks around the rocket, which is like, one, the slowest, and two, the cruelest possible way to kill a baby ever. Baby Superman.
Baby Superman.
Yeah, so I just love Tempest so much. He's just like a very like scenery chewy kind of villain. He actually the actor, I forget the name, but the actor actually has a background in soap operas, which really reads in this episode. What was that?
Okay, so sort of going with your killing. I just realized that you were to the bottom of your point.
What? Let me just mention that if you like Tempest in this episode, there are a few other episodes with Tempest. But go ahead.
I was gonna say, but Superman touched the baby.
Yes.
You can't touch the baby. You cannot touch other versions of yourself. This is the one thing I've learned from everything time travel.
The one rule you knew.
The one rule I know. You cannot interact with another version of yourself. You especially cannot touch them. Otherwise, the world goes kaplooey.
It should.
It should.
It
but
definitely
apparently not on Lois and Clark.
Well,
that really drove me nuts.
Was there something else here that you had?
That was my jump in on your point. That wasn't my actual point.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, go ahead and move on.
Yeah, that was my jump on.
Yeah, and there's some more. Well, I guess I'll go ahead and address it here. Another kind of wonky time travel thing they have in this episode is that, Lois finds out that Clark's Superman throughout the course of the story, which of course means they have to do something to reset it back to the status quo before the end of the episode. And what they do is they, H.G. Wells explains that if he takes the Lois and Clark back to before he arrived to pick them up, that they'll forget everything that happened, which is just like, it doesn't make sense at all. And it also, Tempest, we see Tempest, the last shot of the episode, he's still in that prison back in the 1800s. And if they were brought back before they ever left and it was all undone, then why is Tempest still in jail back in the 1800s, right?
Okay, well, if they're brought back to before he landed, they went back. They didn't go forward. They already were back before he landed.
Oh, yeah. Well, so just in the past, in the 60s and then the 1860s or whatever.
So that's a head scratcher.
Yeah, and it's just especially for an episode that is so obviously a ripoff of Back to the Future.
Oh my gosh,
so many things, even Clark like fading out and everything. So many like little references. Ma and Pa Kent play younger versions of themselves and everything. It's kind of lame that the time travel rules were so loose.
So loosey-goosey.
Especially compared to, just basically there are like 4 rules for time travel that everybody knows.
Yeah.
And
don't touch yourself.
They just broke them all.
Okay. So my actual point though was, why does Superman and his descendants seem to take away all technology and technological advancement in the future? Like, because Tempest shows up and he's like, doesn't even know what a gun is.
Yeah.
Which I understand, it's a peaceful utopia, blah, 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 blah. But, like, he knows no technology. What were they scared of?
Well, maybe society has evolved to such a place that it doesn't really need technology anymore. People don't. Well, actually, I was thinking about this when they mentioned it in the episode, and it actually kind of reminded me of Apple. Because Apple, one of their kind of main things that they do as a technology company is they try to make technology simpler so novices can use it. And every iOS iteration gets simpler and simpler to use. Every version of their desktop operating system gets simpler and simpler to use. And you have less access to the behind the scenes kind of stuff, which I personally hate because I'm a big geek. But I
like it.
I could definitely see, a few hundred years down the line, it being to the point where you don't really interact with technology as far as like in a creative way. It's just there like a friend or a butler, or, something like that, to where you don't really see the technology. You just see that your coffee was ready, that sort of thing.
Okay. I can buy that. I can buy that a little bit. It also completely bothered me that Superman was able to put together a perfect replica of the time travel spaceship in no time.
Well, Superman's a master craftsman.
Apparently, he can do an exact
and he can move
replica.
at super speed.
So that bothered me. Anyway.
I was going to say here, Scotty mentions that yes, in some versions of time travel, when you time travel, just anytime you time travel, you're creating an alternate universe, which it totally makes sense too. Because I mean, H.G. Wells and Tempest travel back to the 1800s and rob a bank with what, Billy the Kid or something like that?
No, it was Jesse James.
And so Clark's never heard of this, but then when they come back to the 60s, or when they show up in the 60s Smallville, they realize that, or they see a reenactment of the robbery, and Clark's like, that's new.
It wasn't Jesse James.
Mm-hmm.
It was Tempest and H.G. Wells that were robbing the bank.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, because then, with all the bad jokes in the bar with Jesse James and performance issues and stuff like that.
Yes. Okay. Was that your...
Oh, no, I think you're still...
No.
Oh, you're good?
I'm good.
Okay, so going back to that utopia, just wanted to mention that really that endgame for the Superman mythology is common in a lot of different Superman stories that, eventually society ends up as a utopia because of Superman's influence. For example, I'm thinking of a couple of examples. All-Star Superman, that ends up, spoilers, he ends up driving the sun for all of eternity. That's kind of his ultimate fate, kind of very mythical too, sort of like a, like Greek god kind of thing. Other versions that I can think of, one by Elliot S. Maggin he did for Superman 300, had Superman, Superman generally lives a long time because he's super, right? Correct. So it has him going through space for thousands of years, saving all the planets until the universe dies and gets reborn, and he ends up being the Atom to another person's Eve on a new version of Earth, like when the universe reboots kind of thing. So that's another kind of utopia thing. And I guess Red Sun by Mark Miller does that as well, where Superman is this, I believe, the son of Lex Luthor, who's sent back through time when Earth's about to die, and he lands in modern day and becomes Superman. Yeah, it's a big time loop thing, but that hurts. Now, Lois and Clark is part of that utopia. H.G. Wells mentions that the utopia is formed because of Lois and Clark's love. It's a very common theme on Lois and Clark that, Lois and Clark have true love. They even address the concept of them being soulmates and like flashback through their previous lives in a future H.G. Wells episode after Lois was a frog clone and got married but didn't really, and all this ridiculous show. But Lois Lane, the concept of Lois Lane as the dumbest woman on the planet that Tempest mentions and Rebecca mentioned in the video, it's a very common criticism of the Lois character and of the secret identity in general. Now, they do provide, H.G. Wells, when him and Lois are talking, provide a explanation for it anyway. And he says that Lois Lane was blinded by true love, which I can totally get. It also gave me a lot of wafts, which is, if you don't know, is a warm and fuzzy feelings, which is what we, back on the Lois and Clark listserv back in the 90s, is what we used to do when they had like a really super duper lovey, shippy kind of moment on Lois and Clark. We would waff. Now, the whole reveal of his secret identity to Lois, especially considering, I think 10 episodes down the line, they actually did it for realsies. It felt like a kind of a way to gauge audience reactions and see if there were any complaints that they could maybe correct for before the season finale happened. Because the Lois and Clark crew were really good. They actually read the listserv that we posted to. So they got fan reaction right away.
They loved just saying, waff.
But I also thought it was a very convenient mind wipe, and we already talked about my issues with the time travel stuff too. So, anything from the chat room there?
I don't think so.
Yeah,
they're just talking about the guy who played H.G. Wells, and now we've crossed into Doctor Who, so I'm gonna have to hop out of there before it gets crazy. So H.G. Wells. Why was he bringing this guy again? Like, why did he trust this guy? I think I missed it.
Oh, well, I think he was just basically, he grabbed Tempest because, well, he was in a utopia, so he was like, there's no criminals here. There's no crime anymore, so I'm fine to just grab any old guy and bring him back to, because remember he said he was bringing someone back as proof to his, his English Society of Smart People or whatever.
Yes. Okay.
So
I didn't completely miss it because he's evil. You've got to screen these people, HG. Screen them. Ask them some questions.
Well, I think, in that utopian society that he lives in, like, it had never occurred to him that you could, like, mug somebody before, or you could shoot somebody or do something dastardly before it. But then he's brought to this universe where, all of a sudden you can. And it intrigues him. But he's a very ambitious, and he has a lust for power too. He eventually becomes, tricks his way into becoming president of the United States for a while too. Beats out Fred Willard for the
that's fantastic
for the office. Okay, so does it pass the wonder test, Anne-Marie? No. Okay,
no.
why?
Please don't make me ever watch that again. As I say in the notes, kill it with fire. I'm just not a fan of this. See, and you're gonna tell me I'm wrong. I don't like this kind of show. Like, and I know you compared it to Once. It doesn't feel very oncey to me.
Yeah, see, it like for me, it feels a lot like Once Upon a Time, which is also a show that's on ABC Sunday nights at 8 p.m. So it's aiming at the same demo too. I believe Desperate Housewives was there for a while too,
which would be Terry.
Yeah.
So there's more of that. Maybe it's just this flavor of cheese is not really my thing. I also think if I'm gonna like something this cheesy or whatever, I have to already like the basis of the story. And honestly, I don't recall ever knowing or seeing a comic book in person until I got together with you. It's just comics and superheroes were not part of my life growing up.
That's totally fair. Next time we do a Superman episode, maybe I'll try and find the perfect Superman episode for you.
No.
Because this just happened to be my favorite Superman episode. I'm sure there's one out there for you. Maybe if I can find one that has a Lorelai Gilmore as the guest villain.
Anything with Lauren Graham would be great.
And as for me, yes, of course, it passed the wonder test. It gave me the same exact wonder I felt when I was younger. This is my favorite episode ever of my favorite Superman show ever. So, of course, I loved it. And it gets so much right about the concept and the characters. It has a fun time travel romp. It shed lights on the characters while responding to criticism of said characters. And Ma and Pa Kent are an absolute delight in their alternate Kents. Their alternate versions of the Kent, although the young Pa Kent really wasn't very convincing. No, not at all.
Not so much.
They just slapped a wig on him, more or
Pretty
less.
much.
Okay, so next up we're going to discuss the pilot episode of the CW's Smallville. Somebody save me! Want to go ahead and hit us up with
singing now?
I am.
You've been singing that all day.
I have.
Okay.
I won't get right back to you, just
Somebody
save
save me. Somebody save me.
Come on. Right back to you. Okay, my voice cracked. Go ahead.
Somebody save me, a desperate voice calls. Is it Lex calling out after one of his falls? Clark's an alien. Shocker! How does he deal? By getting abducted, then strung up in a field. Beat the freak, Kent, so you and Lana can chill, or wait several seasons. Onward to Smallville.
Smallville. So what did you think overall, Anne-Marie?
This is more my speed.
Fair enough. Well, you're a big like Dawson's Creek fan too, and this is kind of like the
Dawson's Creek. I'm currently marathoning Gilmore Girls again.
Well,
so it's I like shiny poppy things from when I was in high school and college. Okay, whatever.
Hi, Wayward's in the chat room. I didn't see you come in there, by the way. Which, by the way, if you're watching this video and you want to chat with us, the chat's at live.universebox.com. Now, I was kind of middling on my reaction, but this is well before I stopped watching Smallville, so I liked it. One of the things that really stuck out to me, both when I first watched this pilot the night it premiered, was back in college, actually, and I believe it was actually right after a Rocky Horror rehearsal.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Nice.
But is all the Silver Age influences that are included in this show. Now, Smallville was billed as an update, sort of a modern Dawson's Creek with Superman kind of thing, very much in the CW style. But it took a lot of the plot points from Silver Age comics, like mainly the Superboy comic. Now, in the Silver Age, Superboy and Lex grew up as friends. They were really good friends growing up. Superboy even built Lex this lab and got him all this equipment so he could do all sorts of crazy experiments. And it was actually, while Lex was doing some of these experiments, that he lost his hair. Basically, he was creating a new form of life big explosion. Superboy comes in, blows out the explosion, kills the new form of life, and sprays chemicals all over Lex, causing his hair to fall out, which is what makes Lex hate him. Kind of a weak motivation, but we also see here in Smallville that the meteor shower that brings Clark to Earth is what causes Lex to lose his hair, and kind of defines Lex as a person almost as we go on in the series. And also, Lana Lang was the love interest she was the Lois Lane in the 1940s, 1950s, 1960s Superboy comics. And Pete Ross was also there. He was a friend and confidant to Clark. He was also one of the few people in Smallville who knew Superboy's secret identity, but he never let Superboy know that he knew his secret identity because he didn't want Superboy to feel weird around him. So he just kept it in his head that he knew that Superboy was Clark Kent and tried to help him, cover where he could without letting Superboy know he knew. Was there something in the chat room?
Yes. Weird Soul pointed out that the guy who played Lex was in Sorority Boys. And he was a really good Lex, but hard to picture in Sorority Boys. Okay, I had no idea. I did not make the connection. I'm sorry. Don't judge me. I loved Sorority Boys.
Oh, you didn't realize that was Lex?
No. I didn't watch Smallville.
Here, let's we'll get a picture here.
No, there's better. Big puffy hearts.
There we go, Sorority Boys, and there's Lex Luthor right there.
Great!
With the yellow bag and everything.
So great.
Yeah, did he ever do any other movies besides that?
I don't know. I don't care. It was a great movie. Don't judge me.
You just like Sorority Boys. That's fine. Okay. Now, I would also like to point out there was a little bit of influence from the post-crisis version of Superboy in here, and that's basically that Clark wanted to be a football player. It was originally introduced in the post-crisis origin story, John Byrne's Man of Steel, and actually the first page of the first issue has him in a football uniform out on the field playing, and it's something they've kind of kicked down the field. Kicked down the field and used on pretty much every incarnation of the character since then. I never really liked it. I'm not a big sports guy, for one. And Superman, as I know him, would rather cooperate than compete in general. Lex is more of the guy who's into competition and always winning and everything. Superman just wants to do what's right and help people who can't help themselves.
He wasn't trying to compete by playing football. He was trying to fit in by playing football.
Yes.
He was trying to save himself and make friends. And as previously pointed out by me, he wanted to be normal.
Yeah, and that's definitely something they improved on in Smallville versus the Man of Steel series. Because in the Man of Steel series, he was in it solely to glorify himself. To be the hot guy at the big man on campus sort of thing. Where in Smallville, it's more he just wants to rise up to the normal level,
right?
And so I think Smallville did a much better job of kind of conveying that, but I still never really liked it. And
that's because you don't like sports.
Yeah, honestly, a big part of it is I don't like sports, and I don't get your peanut butter in my chocolate. Don't get your sports in my Superman. Don't get my Superman in your sports. And don't release a special edition.
Please put chocolate in peanut butter, yes.
And don't release a special edition Ford trucks for the Man of Steel.
Oh.
Which they did.
Oh. Okay. Wall of Weird Girl.
Chloe,
sure.
Sullivan.
Whoever she is. I told you I knew nothing. So they're supposed to be freshmen. How does she have this massive wall of weird stories hidden inside the school this early in the school year? It's homecoming time. Homecoming happens like in the first month of school, and she has an entire hidden room that nobody's torn down.
Well, she's and there are actually specials on the season 1 DVDs that kind of go into this, but she's a AV newspaper yearbook, which, as we both probably know, because we both did that in high school, gives you a greater access to the school, and usually you can go in over the summer and stuff like that, as long as you're like editor level. But
she has a gigantic wall of stuff in a room.
I think the implication is that she's been amassing that over the summer, because those little vignettes that are in the thing, they're all like, okay, I'm here, on summer break doing my little special report series about all these meteor freaks or whatever. And I mean, it kind of expands over the course too, but yeah, I mean, I can see your point though.
It just makes no sense that she's had the time and that nobody else can see this. Like,
Tom DeGossa says Superman peanut butter in your chocolate, of course, because we add the Superman peanut butter commercial.
Superman peanut butter in my chocolate. I'm okay with that. But like, did she start? I don't know. It just feels weird. Like, yeah, okay, she worked on it. I have issues. Okay, I have issues.
Yeah, actually,
and you know why I have issues.
Well, I was just going to say that there's actually a similar situation going on in one of my Dog Boy books, and you had an issue with that too. You were like, "How are these kids in the school?"
I don't understand. And yet, I don't question things on Dawson's Creek and Gilmore Girls. Okay. But it's like she had to have started this wall in middle school. Like, did she have a wall in middle school and took it down at the end of the year and hung it back up at the beginning of high school? Like, that's weird. Also, freshmen, even if in these types of organizations, yearbook, newspaper, blah, 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 they don't have the access. They're freshmen.
Yeah, Angel says in the chat room, plot convenience.
Yeah, well, yeah, plot convenience. But really, this could have been in her house. This could have been in the back of her closet and been like, hey, you know, the guys came over and we looked at the wall in her house. That I'd have had zero problems with.
Well,
it's the fact that it's in the stinking school.
Well, I think it was probably just to give them like a consistent location to go to for like rallying before the big fight or the big trying to find the meteor freak or whatever the problem is that week or whatever.
All right, fine. Also, does she have a crush on Clark or the other guy?
Clark.
Okay.
Definitely,
I kind of figured.
Definitely Clark.
I figured as such, but you know, it's only the first episode.
You know, actually, when we first watched the pilot, me and Jason George, who was on the show a couple weeks ago, we were sure that Chloe was going to, through some sort of weird back alley name change or something, was going to be revealed as Lois Lane. Just because she fits so clearly into that archetype. But it ended up, the few seasons later when Lois showed up, she's actually Chloe's cousin. Which makes total sense. Yeah, completely. They're very similar. Okay, now the thing I don't like about this show
is the thing that I like about the show
is the CW-ness of it all, and this is also part of the why I have problems with watching Flash and Arrow and everything too. Of course, you know, this style, for starters, everybody looks way too old for their parts. They're playing 16-year-olds and they're 30.
25 or so. Yeah, that was an issue.
And they're also all super pretty. They're models. They're Abercrombie and Fitch models, and they're all dressed in the latest fashions or whatever, you know, Warner Brothers has a deal with that week. And this episode didn't have it, but they also, we called him Promo Pete back in the day, Pete Ross. He would always, when there was a new single out from a Warner Brothers artist that they needed promoting, you know, Pete would just pass it to Clark and it would just stay right in the center of the frame for about 5 seconds.
Nice.
Or if there was like a Smallville soundtrack, he'd be playing songs off of it. If there was a Letterman's jacket that they were promoting that week on the, Pete would be wearing it. You know, so, you know, that kind of commercialization to all the tie-ins and everything was kind of lame. You know, the scene in the graveyard too, I thought was very CW. It was so cheesy.
It was awful.
Just over the top cheesy. And the whole, like, because they're basically sitting by Lana's parents' grave, and she's like, you know, sometimes I come out here and talk to them, and she has kind of a faux conversation with her dead parents, and then Clark's like, okay, I'll do that too. Hey, Mr. Lane, hey, can I date your daughter? Sure, why not? And it's just like, that would have probably blown any real person's chances of ever having a relationship with that person.
That would be like...
It almost felt like he was making fun of her for talking to it.
Yes, it did feel like he was making fun of her. It was really weird.
Yeah, it was just a really, really weird scene. Also, what's up with Creeper Clark spying on Lana through a telescope?
Constantly.
Yeah, I mean, people had a ton of issues with Brandon Routh's Superman, like watching Lois Lane when he comes back from Earth and he thinks, oh, I might have a kid with her. So he's like checking out the house to see what the living situation's like, and people are like, stalker Superman. Superman would never do that. Mm-hmm. He's watching the girl next door through a telescope, like in her room.
Yeah,
it's creepy.
That's creepy.
It's just a little creepy.
That's totes creepy.
And also the acting across the board here is really weak overall. But I will say that, especially Tom Welling, but you know, he wasn't selected for his acting ability. To his credit, though, he got a lot better as the show went on until, like, when I checked out around the Supergirl season, he not only was he a really good actor on the show, but he was also writing, or I think directing episodes.
Oh,
and
really?
Yeah, he fell into sort of a leadership position on the show to where he was part of the creative team too. So, you know, He got better. He got
better then.
Yes,
He
definitely.
got better then. Okay. Lana's necklace freaked me out.
Oh, the
The
kryptonite
kryptonite necklace. I get you want something sentimental and all that, but that thing was huge.
Mm-hmm.
That was an uncomfortable size stone.
Yes,
And it
definitely.
was ugly because it was kryptonite. But like, I mean, and it just seemed really obvious that like Clark wasn't just nervous around her.
Mm.
He physically is falling over.
I did enjoy that they managed to find a way to slip into the first episode, though, that bumbling Clark Kent persona.
Yeah.
And they found a way to at least get that in the first episode, even if it wasn't like on purpose.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just had such serious issues with that necklace because it was so big and ugly.
That's kind of weird, though. That would almost be like Bruce Wayne wearing the bullet that killed his parents around his neck, you know?
Yes!
Like,
yes! It's just like, it's morbid. But then again, this is the girl that at night is going to the graveyard and talking to her parents' grave and making them talk back. So, I'm sorry, she's too pretty for that.
Bruce Wayne.
She's too pretty for the crazy.
Bruce Wayne wears the bullet around his neck signed by Joe Chill. Beautiful. Okay, so Anne Marie, does the pilot episode of Smallville pass the Wonder Test for you?
I think it's pretty obvious that this is my type of TV show. Sorry about your luck. I'll probably be marathoning this in the next year.
That's fair.
That's
fair.
my life.
Oh, Angel in the chat room says it's kind of common for CW shows to have the actors start directing.
I think CW, WB, that sort of area, it's a place for them to grow because it's kind of, in a sense, starter shows.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody goes on to bigger and better things, but where do you learn how to do the bigger and better things? Who's going to give you that opportunity? This is where you go to do that.
Yeah.
Because they do start off with, all of their shows are so young, so you do have the younger actors and actresses, so they watch, they learn, they do.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Okay,
Sorry,
so
yes.
let's see. As for me, no. Smallville did not hold up to the Wonder Test for me. While I watched the first several seasons, and I liked them well enough, I never became really passionate about the show. I will say that, you know, the pilot episode and most of the first season had me really, really excited. And I was like, you know, once the series gets a few years in and they give them the tights and stuff, I know they say they're not going to, but they're going to. They have to, right? That, you know, it's going to be a really good Superman show. It never got there for me. And I will say that Smallville is a big part of the reason I just can't get into Arrow and Flash. Like I said, it's just too much of that CW style. And one day I'm probably like, when I'm old and infirm and I can't do anything but sit there and watch TV, I'm probably going to go back and watch the last few seasons for the first time. I have seen the final episode though. It was pretty good. Okay, so this next thing here that we're going to do. Oh, yeah. So if you
Prepare yourselves, folks.
If you guys didn't know, I'm a big Superman fan. I don't know if you guessed that or not. I've been trying to bite my tongue and hold back the inner fanboy.
I'm really not trying to hit my mic constantly tonight. I don't know what's wrong.
But I've been trying to hold back the inner fanboy the entire episode and be as neutral as possible. But here's where I'm going to fanboy out, and I'm going to do it for exactly 2 minutes. So I have my notes here. Let's see here. And I have a special thing here so you guys can see the timer too. Okay, yeah, we have 2 minutes, and I'm just going to geek out for 2 minutes. Just let me have my 2 minutes. And let's see here. Okay, we're going to go in 3, 2, 1, go. He's very colorful. He has a bunch of powers that work really well together. He always tries to do what's right. He never hurts somebody if he can help it. He shows compassion to his enemies. His main weakness is being a really good person. He's a muckraking journalist using the truth to change a city. As Clark Kent, he's a sharp dresser. I identify with him. I really identify with him. One, because my father died before I was born, and my father's legend drives and haunts me, much like Jor-El's does for Superman. Superman moved from a small rural area to a major city because of his great ambition, like I did. And he's also not satisfied with superficial relationships. He wants Lois to like him for who he is, not what he can do. He's so good at saving the day because people think he's overpowered. He's not even the most powerful person on the Justice League. That's Martian Manhunter. He's not afraid to wear his underwear on the outside. Lois and Clark taught me what a healthy romantic relationship looks like. One of his main villains is a godlike being from the fifth dimension, but Soups is so likable, Mr. Mix's Pitalik can only play pranks on him. Breath. His best friend Jimmy Olsen is a screw-up with money problems. Even though he could kill Batman from a mile away, he gives him a fair fight whenever they end up in fisticuffs. Lois Lane was my dream girl. There are more colors of kryptonite than colors of the rainbow. He's a scientist who's constantly trying to cure Earth diseases in his fortress lab. He has a fortress of freaking solitude. He's so universal that he's both a Christ figure and a Moses figure. He pulls off the boots. Everybody looks more powerful in a Superman suit. He saved Lucy Ricardo when she climbed out on the ledge. Clark Kent is the world master at making excuses to exit a conversation. He's the only one still using phone booths. The only person Jor-El trusted to tell when and where Superman's rocket would land was Albert freaking Einstein. He had multiple personality disorder back in the 90s and dressed up as a vigilante named Gangbuster. He trusted JFK with his secret identity. One time he became a super lion. He's a living solar battery. His girlfriend was trained by a Green Beret. Every Silver Age Superman cover makes him look like a jerk. Metropolis is a match. Oh. And we're done. Okay, I geeked out. I made it through about a page and a half. I still have a page and a half of stuff that I typed off the top of my head, but whoo, criminy. Okay, let me get my breath here. Thank you for letting me geek out. I really, really appreciate it. It was a lot of fun too. Okay,
I've been holding them back all week. It's crazy.
Okay, so now we're going to open up the idea box to answer some questions that you guys submitted to us through the forum at universebox.com/ideabox. And I'll just show that to you real quick. It's real easy. You just come here, you type in your idea, hit submit, boom, we have it. And then we have stuff to talk about. Now, unfortunately, because Anne-Marie's not a huge Superman fan, I might be fielding most of these questions by myself.
Shocking.
But, you know, if you feel like jumping in on any of these...
I mean, I'll answer each as best I can.
Okay, that's fair. Okay.
Oh, gosh. Hold on. I'm just now looking at them.
Okay.
I'll try.
Okay, so let's see here. First question is, what's the first time you remember seeing Superman or seeing something with Superman for the first time? For me... It was probably when I was about 3 years old. I don't even remember seeing a comic book or a cartoon or anything with Superman on it, but I remember being in my Superman pajamas, jumping off the couch and being confused as to why I couldn't fly and demanding a cape for the pajamas so I could fly, because I figured the cape is what made you fly.
That's fantastic.
Oh.
Man, we're just hitting all the mics tonight. I can't really remember the first time I saw Superman. The first thing that I could even picture was Superman, which I'm sure wasn't the first time I saw him. My family owned a bowling alley, and they had specialty bowling balls, and I'm pretty sure there was a Superman one. Like, I feel like that's like sticking out. There's like a faint little picture back here. So that's the first Superman I'm really remembering. 'Cause I know. Sorry.
That's fair. And Tondagasa says Super Friends for sure. Scotty says watching the movies at a young age. And Angel says, I don't know, probably like the cartoons, like the reruns of Super Friends, Bobby Super Friends. Yeah, a lot of Super Frenzies.
All you people in your Super Frenzies.
Okay, so let's see here. And this is probably one that you can answer, Anne-Marie. What is your favorite Superman story? Okay,
we'll let Bill take this one.
I have a couple here. I have a book here. A couple of them are actually in here, so it's convenient. Called The Greatest Superman Stories Ever Told. And the first one it's called The Night of March 31st. And basically what it is, it's an 8-page story from the 60s. And you just go through and Superman's going through his day and everything's wrong. He's flying out of his out for the day without his cape on. He's coming in through a wall instead of coming in through a window. Bizarro Perry White is his boss. All this kind of stuff. And you're supposed to figure out, solve the riddle of what the big deal is with the night of March 31st. And the big deal, because the first panel is Clark Kent climbing into bed the night of March 31st. So the secret to March 31st is the day after the morning Clark wakes up and most of the story takes place is April Fool's Day. So everything's off because it's April Fool's Day. And then one other one I'll mention in here real quick is just this one. And this is, I think, the best Superman story ever written. And this is also my favorite Superman writer ever. It's by Elliot S. Magan, S with an exclamation point. It's called Must There Be a Superman? Now, basically what happens is the Guardians of the Galaxy, the guys who give the Green Lanterns their powers, they call Superman up to their home planet, and they're like, you can't help the Earthlings as much as you have been. You're holding them back, and then they just send him back to Earth just with that kind of nugget of doubt in his head. Really good story, and I also recommend his 2 Superman novels are really good too. Miracle Monday and Last Son of Krypton. Okay, let's see. Scotty Rowland says The Wedding of Lois and Superman comic. That was a pretty good one, if I remember correctly. Tom DeGossa liked Miracle Monday. I believe I read that on my recommendation.
And Angels with Me.
Oh, and
Can't answer.
Wynn says first time she remembers seeing Superman was those cheapo Superman Halloween cartoons or costumes at the drugstore. Okay, last question. And this is like, everyone has their Doctor Who. Who is your Superman?
Honestly, the person I think of when I think of Superman is Dean Cain.
Dean Cain?
Dean Cain.
That's fair.
Just because Lois and Clark was coming out when I was like old enough to like really know what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
And we didn't watch the older stuff. So that's who I see.
Yeah, it, probably actually a tie between George Reeves and Dean Cain for me. The Superman from The Adventures of Superman and The New Adventures of Superman. Because I met George first, and I love that show. Probably the best Clark Kent show they ever did. Because it was really focused on the Clark Kent character. But then I started watching Lois and Clark, and not only do I have the attachment of loving the episodes, but I also became a big part of the community,
right?
The online community around Lois and Clark. And so it just like really locked me in with that show and that interpretation of Superman. The whole like Clark Kent is what he does, Clark Kent is who he is, Superman is what he does is something that I think is fundamental to the character too. Yeah, and everybody here is saying Christopher.
Most people are saying
was their Superman, which is completely fair.
That's totally fair, yeah.
All right, so let's see here. What's going to be in the box for next week, Anne-Marie?
Okay.
What's in the box? What's in the box? Yes.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Can you handle it?
No.
I love the 90s.
Strikes Back. Yes. Next week on Universe Box, we're traveling back to the 1990s. Not, but actually we are, and we won't stop until Hammer Time is complete.
Oh,
what's your favorite 90s band? Ever watched TGIF? How many hours did you waste watching Fresh Prince? Tell us.
I could still do that.
Tell us your first date going to see Deep Impact. We're talking the 90s next week on Universe Box. Better bring some Dunkaroos, which I don't think they make anymore.
Love Dunkaroos.
Right? And I believe we're going to do Wonder Box with TGIF. I'm going to try and find, I know on YouTube sometimes they have like a completely unbroken block of a broadcast for TGIF on ABC. I'm going to try and find one of those. And so watch out our Twitter at universe_box. And we'll go ahead and post the link there once we find it. Which, by the way, if you have any 90s stories you want to send in, great way to do it. Email us, universeboxshow@gmail.com. Tweet us at universe_box. The Facebook is facebook.com/theuniversebox. And the voicemail number is 424-274-2352. Again, that's 424-274-2352. And we have a few voicemails here. They're a little bit lengthy, but
enjoy.
I really like them.
Yeah.
But first up, as usual, is Bobby. Take it away, Bobby.
Hey, Bill and Anne-Marie, it's Bobby. I don't have a lot of thoughts to share about Superman. I've never been a big fan of the character myself. More of a Marvel zombie. So I figured I'd do like I do on most episodes of Universe Box and share a personal story. So my personal story involving Superman would be when I was about 3. Would have been just before we left New York. I was home with Mom. She had chores to do and whatnot, so she set me down in front of the virtual babysitter. Of course, I'm talking of the television. This was early 80s, so I'm sure we didn't have cable, so we would have had like 4 or 5 different channels to choose from. Maybe a dozen if we were lucky, depending on reception. So at the time, the only choice for me to put on the TV would have been the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. I've never understood the draw of the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. So I'm watching the parade, and of course the floats start popping out with like the pop culture icons of the time. There was probably a Laverne and Shirley float, a Fonzie float, some like Broadway number done on a float as it was going by.
The Happy Days game in space. Of course, me being 3, the only thing I was wanting to see were the balloons. Scooby-Doo, Snoopy, Bullwinkle,
And then there he was. 40 feet wide, or 30 feet wide maybe, 80 feet long. Took at least a dozen people to drag him through the streets. Pointed to the heavens as if he was just about to take off, as if he had just taken off for flight. It was Superman. Don't know why, like I said, I've never been a fan of the character, but at that moment I was in awe. I'm sure it was the size of him, but I decided I was going to fly through the air like Superman. So I go over to the dresser, which was probably about twice as tall as I was, opened the drawers to create a staircase to get to the top, and with all the might I could muster, I leapt into the air to fly across the room. And for a brief moment, I actually thought I had succeeded. I guess technically I was flying for half a second, maybe. That was until the cruel, harsh mistress named Gravity paid me a visit. I landed headfirst in a small metal wastebasket, and I busted my head open. I've still got like this weird backward C scar on the right side of my forehead, just under my hairline.
You're a Kryptonian, Bobby.
So that now every time I look in the mirror and see that backwards C scar, I think of Superman, the overpowered Boy Scout.
Thank you very much, Bobby. And he's not overpowered. He's not even the most powerful guy in the Justice League. I thought I explained this. Tandagasa in the chat room says, give us some Kingdom Come love, Bill. Obviously, love Kingdom Come. If I hadn't tossed it out this weekend, that would be a Kingdom Come Superman shirt on Rumple back there. But also, where was it? Guest Monkey, as far as the answer for Guest Monkey Superman, my dad. Which I thought was a really good answer, too. Okay, next up is Michael Lucero, who has quite a big treatise on Superman here that I haven't listened to yet. So take it away, Michael.
Hey, Bill and Anna Marie, it's Michael. I've always been a comics fan, though never a hardcore one. And I've always been more of a Marvel guy than a DC guy, although, Superman and Batman are, of course, iconic no matter what your experience or inexperience with comics. Of the two, I honestly know more about Batman, so I come to the Superman as a character with relatively little knowledge. Of course, I've read the novel It's Superman, which I loved, as well as the comic Secret Identity, and of course Smallville, all of which I loved. By the way, my favorite aspect of Smallville is Clark and Lex Luthor's early friendship and alliance. And I really think the friendship and the gradual falling out between them was always very tragic, even if inevitable from a story perspective. But it was my favorite part of that show. Maybe that's where I originally got the idea of shaving my head. I've also seen Superman in the Justice League cartoons, of course, especially the ones in the late 90s and early aughts. So I'm not the biggest Superman fan. Of course, that would be Bill, probably. But I do like the character, of course, and more so now than I did when I was growing up. But really, there's an interesting irony about Superman that I want to talk about, especially when you consider the origin of his name. So I'm not sure how many people know about this, probably a lot, but the name Superman is basically a translation of the German word Übermensch, which is a philosophical idea from Friedrich Nietzsche. Of those who are aware of this, I'm not sure how many people realize what the idea behind the word actually is. I'm not really going to go into Nietzsche's ideas in depth, mainly because I don't agree with his philosophy at all.
Fair enough.
But just in brief, it started out as a reactionary idea against Christianity. He denied the existence of God, and so he held that there's therefore no real basis for morality or values. And so a true Übermensch, or Superman, can define his own morality and values. Of course, what these values are doesn't matter if we are the only ultimate source of them. So because of that, Nietzsche held up the Übermensch as the ultimate goal, as a kind of vision of humanity that had surpassed everything that humanity has accomplished up till now. So to a lot of people that'll sound just fine, but the problem is that Nietzsche saw the Superman as an ultimate goal against which everything else had to be measured. All human lives had to be valued based solely on their effectiveness in making humanity greater. So in other words, if you stood in the way of humanity realizing the Superman, you were nothing. So for women, if they didn't give birth to children who either were Superman or paved the way for the Superman, they were nothing. So whether Nietzsche intended it or not, his philosophy also served as the root of movements like eugenics, fascism, the rise of the Nazi Party. And that's where the irony comes in, since Superman, of course, the comic book character, was created by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, two Jewish kids, shortly before World War II. There's some question as to whether they knew that the name they were using for their superhero was also being used by Hitler to describe his master race. But they probably just took it from science fiction, where it had kind of filtered in as well. But whatever the case on that, Superman, as he appears in the comics, bears little resemblance to the Übermensch of Nietzsche's philosophy, thankfully. In fact, Lex Luthor is probably more of a Nietzschean Superman than Superman himself. In Smallville, I think there's an episode where Lionel Luthor, Lex's father, calls Clark an Übermensch, thereby completely missing the point about what's truly great about him. One of my favorite nonfiction authors, G.K. Chesterton, he addressed the idea of the Superman in a book called Heretics. So quoting from him really quick, Nietzsche summed up all that is interesting in the Superman idea when he said, "Man is a thing which has to be surpassed." But the very word surpass implies the existence of a standard common to us and the thing surpassing us. If the Superman is more manly, meaning more human, than men are, of course they will ultimately deify him, even if they happen to kill him first. But if he is simply more supermanly, they might be quite indifferent to him, as they would to another seemingly aimless monstrosity. He must submit to our test even in order to overawe us. Mere force or size alone will never make men think man their superior. Supermen, if not good men, are vermin. So he goes on to say, Nietzsche's Superman is cold and friendless. And when Nietzsche says, "A new commandment I give you, be hard," he is really saying, "A new commandment I give you, be dead." Sensibility is the definition of life. Coming back to the comic book character, the great thing about Superman is that he defies his own name. He is not a Superman in the sense that he is not an Übermensch. His real strength is not how hard he can punch or how fast he can fly or how invincible he is to bullets. His real greatness isn't his ability to do things other men can't. His real strengths are his goodness, his selflessness, his respect for others.
Amen.
And despite his levels of power, the sheer physical strength of the character is really only a coincidence, I think. Otherwise, as Chesterton wrote, he wouldn't be an interesting character at all. We wouldn't even be able to identify him, and he'd be a monster. At another point, Chesterton says, "The greater and stronger a man is, the more he would be inclined to prostrate himself before a periwinkle." To me, that also reflects Superman's wonder and humility in the face of life that is weaker than he is. Superman is a great man, but he's a great man because, Christ-like, he makes himself weak and low, not taking his own abilities for granted. He's like a servant of all mankind. He's first among the heroes because he makes himself last. Anyway, that's my long, rambling, philosophical treatment of Superman. Can't wait to hear the episode, and I'll talk to you all later. Bye.
No, thank you very much, Michael. Like, that's all information I've seen before or heard before. Maybe not the exact quotes or something, but it was presented probably as good as I've ever heard it presented. So thank you very much for sharing that with
Thank you for sharing it with
our
us
listeners.
and our listeners.
And yeah, there's a ton of parallels there. And a lot of times Superman is definitely painted as a Christ figure in popular culture. They even had some kind of hints towards that in the Smallville episode with the wings behind him and stuff like that. But I've also thought he's a bit of a Moses figure too, because, put in a basket, sent down the old cosmic river.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. Okay, next up is Woo. Take it away, Woo.
Growing up, Superman was always a favorite of mine. I always identified with him because being a kid with cerebral palsy, and for those of you who don't know what cerebral palsy is, part of my brain that controls fine motor skills and the ability to walk is dormant. And I always identified with Superman in the sense of he's a part of two worlds. but really doesn't fully belong to either of them. He doesn't really belong with Kryptonians because he's been on Earth so long he really identifies with being human. But genetically, he's not human. He really can't be human. He can't stop being Kal-El of Krypton. There will always be a part of him. And I identify with that because, yes, I look normal. I sound normal. Almost everything in my body works normally. But I'm not a part of the everyday life of humanity because not everything is wheelchair accessible in this world, unfortunately. And I really identified with the idea of uniqueness. Yes, you're unique. Yes, that's great. But uniqueness can also have a dark side to it. You're the only one like you. And no one can really understand the emotional strife you go through. That, I think, is one of the most compelling aspects of the character. Because despite all of that, he still has this endless optimism for the future and this endless optimism for the potential of humanity. I think that's Superman's strongest trait, is his hope for the future. And some may say, oh, Superman's boring or he's too powerful. And in a sense, that's true in some aspects. But I think it's because most writers do not know how to write him because
Amen.
they cannot understand what it's like to be in that kind of a situation that Superman is in. I still think the best portrayal of the character is by Christopher Reeve. That's one of the last movies that I ever saw with my mother before she left.
I will just interject real quick, Wu, just to say I think Christopher also gave the best or the most convincing version of Clark Kent as far as like being able to keep the secret identity stuff going on.
Loved every aspect of that movie, from the John Williams score to the wonderful portrayal of both Superman and Clark Kent by the late great Christopher Reeve, who is a hero also of mine, who inspired me first as Superman and then later on with his philanthropic work for people with spinal issues and the urging of stem cell research. I think people don't really realize the impact that Superman has had on the world. I don't think people realize that without him, there would be no comic book superheroes. Without him, there wouldn't be anything that came after it, like Batman, Daredevil, the Avengers. None of that would have happened without Superman. One last thing before I go. One thing I realized throughout my lifetime is I have Superman's problems, not only emotionally, not only physically sometimes, but in terms of my relationships. I tend to be attracted to the more difficult and more, stubborn, strong women like Lois Lane.
Me too.
I think that Lois Lane is one of the most unique and groundbreaking characters in fiction because she wasn't a damsel in distress. She actually had a real job that wasn't a secretary. She would walk up to a man and tell him just like it is, and that was very unique for the time. And I've often looked at Lois Lane as the kind of woman that I would want to fall in love with and have a relationship with. I think the writer Neil Gaiman said it best. Whether it's something you roll up and put in your back pocket and collect in your treehouse, or a little device that you tap on and it downloads the contents into your retina. In 150 years, kids will still be wondering what's going on with Superman. They did in 1938, and I think they will continue to wonder about that long after we're all gone and the next generation of comic book readers comes about. Talk to you guys later. Bye.
Thank you very much, Wu.
Oh, Woo.
Always such great stuff from
I
Wu.
know. Woo, you're awesome.
Definitely. And if you haven't watched the home video that we did with Wu's story for the first episode, definitely go to our YouTube channel at youtube.universebox.com and check that out. Great story there too. Thank you very much, Wu. Okay, we have a couple letters to wrap up with here. First, a haiku from Hope. Hope's haiku is, I hate Superman. Sorry, Bill, he is the worst. Can we still be friends? Answer's no, Hope. No, I'm kidding. Of course we're friends. Of course we're friends, Hope.
Hope, I'm not a big Superman person, and he married me, so, I mean, he ought to at least be your friend.
And Angel in the chat room says, thinks it's great that comic book characters do act as inspiration and become something more than just a drawing. Definitely. And I mean, they're kind of the new mythology too. They're, you know, where the Greeks and Romans would look towards Zeus and stuff like that to kind of get their morality plays and teach them how to be good people. We look to Superman or Batman or whatever.
Right.
Okay, you want to wrap up with this letter from Patty?
Sure. Hey, Bill and Anne-Marie. I never really had an issue with Superman having so many powers, since I always figured that he was the character. Besides, it's not like he doesn't have weaknesses. Everyone knows that he is weak against kryptonite and magic. Really, it's the weirdest thing. If you stab him in the gut with a magical knife, it would do some damage. I wonder why Lex Luthor never tried the magical route or magic bullet.
He'd have to convince a magician to help him.
Yeah. Regardless, I never really thought it was a problem for him to have that many powers, since he isn't the only multiple power in the DC universe. In fact, characters like Captain Marvel, Wonder Woman, and Darkseid are just as equally powerful, and rarely do I hear this complaint about them. I think this issue isn't with the powers, but if they really want to make him relatable, then maybe they shouldn't make Clark Kent's side just a persona. If Superman... Did I miss something?
No.
Okay. Superman may not be the one who you emphasize. I can guarantee that Clark Kent is. This is due to the fact that he does get picked on, and the person he likes doesn't give him the time of day. If they are looking to make him more relatable, then developing the Clark Kent persona would be a good place to start. Sincerely, Patty, aka Sage of Earth.
Yeah, and some of the best versions of Superman do really kind of focus on the Clark Kent aspect of his personality. And yeah, the whole complaint about him being overpowered or he's boring because he has every superpower. He had all these powers first. That's kind of like saying, man, why do the Beatles always have to rip off NSYNC and the Backstreet Boys? Or, you know, something like that.
Which we'll be getting a lot of next week.
Yes, 90s. Well, you know, I want it that way. It ain't no lie. Bye. But thank you very much, Patty, for your letter. And if you guys want to send us your own 90s stories next week, the email is universeboxshow@gmail.com. The Twitter is @universe_box. The Facebook is facebook.com/theuniversebox. And the voicemail number is 424-274-2352. Again, that's 424-274-2352. Now a couple takeaways here as we wrap up tonight. First, every superhero out there stole something from Superman. Superman is one of only 5 fictional characters known across the world. There is a right and wrong in the universe, and that distinction is not hard to make. And Superman's greatest weakness is being a good person, which I think is okay, acceptable.
That's a good weakness to have.
He can probably live with that for sure. Thank you again to everyone who tuned in
guys.
In the chat room tonight.
Nice big chat tonight.
Yeah, I think
awesome.
Also our longest episode ever, which appropriate.
Yep.
But
we kind of expected it.
All
good things. All good things.
So, Anne-Marie, where can people find you online?
You can
find
me
me
chat there.
on the Twitter at @DeSimone.
Okay, and as for me, you can follow me on Twitter at Bill Meeks. You can follow the superhero stories I write at, I'm showing Anne-Marie here.
Yeah.
At dogboyadventures.com. Here's Danger on Liberty Pier. It's a good one. And you can follow all the other podcasts we do, like Legends of Gotham, Greetings from Storybrooke, etc. at universebox.com. So I guess that's about it. A lot of fun doing the Superman episode.
It was interesting.
I knew it was going to be super packed.
Yep.
For sure. Mm-hmm. But good stuff. Good stuff. Okay.
Is it time for Harry Potter yet?
Few more weeks.
I don't have this much paraphernalia, though.
Okay, well, until next time,
remember to think outside.
Don't you love this picture of Superman we got for the thing?
Awful picture of Superman.
But
I know why you chose
Superman.
It's a great reason to choose it. Still weird.
Thank you, Tandagasa and Angel and Woot Woot Scotty. Woot Woot Scotty. Yeah, but I hope you guys enjoyed it. Like, I know it was super long. I hope it wasn't too boring or anything, too. Definitely. But good stuff. Good stuff. And I was actually saying to Anne-Marie earlier, too, that, like, this kind of felt like the episode, the basic Superman episode, we had to get out of the way. So like in 20 or 25 episodes down the road, we can come back and do the Superman episode, like really in depth episode. I really want to do.
And then my eye twitched.
Definitely.
Nice.
Yes, thanks. Great episode. That right
Why
there.
is
That's
my thing not.
that right there. That's my Superman. Me. I'm gonna assume you're talking about me, Tandagasa. What's up? Is your
My thing stopped.
your chat? Oh no.
Stopped with my smiley face. It was like, I know there's stuff after me. I'm watching it on the other screen. Put it
Yeah,
up.
an hour and 44 minutes. So we should totally get out of here.
All right, fine.
Oh, Angel said it made her see another side of the character.
Well, good.
Definitely.
Good.
Excellent. Thanks, guys. Have a good night. Bye.